right, so here with Dave and Annie Horine, two people that I've gotten the joy of getting close to since being at City Life, but also have been super faithful, very involved, serving, leading in lots of ways. Worship team, kids ministry, Haven, Bible studies, all sorts of things. And so, yeah, it's just been a joy to have you guys in my life, my wife's life, but also here in the life of the church. And as I've gotten to know you and getting to know your stories, I mean, living in Indiana, serving Dave on staff at a church, youth pastor, worship pastor, and now serving in a different role in your career. Now, Annie wasn't on staff at a church, and now she's on staff here at doing City Kids, and just life of three kids and fostering and following Jesus through it all. Just over those different seasons, how have you just seen Jesus grow you in your walk with him?
It has been a lot. It has been great to be here at City Life with just all of the change in our lives and kind of finding out there's a church right across the street from our neighborhood. And all right, we'll check that out and see if it's the right place for us. And I don't think we really even visited anywhere else once we got here. And I think just God was pretty clear to us that being close to our home and being in the community with our church, it's going to be such a big deal. So, and that was part of like our church journey, even in Indiana. We lived right down the road from the church that I pastored at, and then we ended up at a church 40 minutes away. We went there for a couple years back and forth, and then we're like, we got to be in that community. This is so hard. And so ended up moving literally right around the corner from that church.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And just being able to be in community with the people that we were seeing on Sundays, and then being able to just really be involved in the life of the church. So I think that, here we knew coming in that if we were going to be involved in a ministry in the life of a local church, it had to be close to where we are. So I think, just to start with that, but the journey's there's been a lot.
Yeah, there's been a lot. Yeah, when you mentioned just looking back to when we have kind of like flip-flopped our career roles. Like he was youth pastor, associate pastor, and now I'm on staff at a church here, and it's it's not like what we expected at all.
No.
Which that's kind of, how God works. It's, it's his plan, not yours. And things look a lot different than we would have expected. But looking back, I can see how he, prepared us through each different season for what we're doing now. And there was a lot of growth through that. And there was a lot of things that we had to, I think, surrender and let go of control of, to get where we are and where he has us today, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's struggles, sin, hard things, hard things in our lives that we've had to allow to be exposed to others, and then hard things in others' lives that they've had to feel the freedom in relationship to expose to us. So we help them walk through it.
Yeah.
And just, walking through the next thing, and just understanding that he is faithful and promises to be faithful, and having faith in that, even when sometimes it doesn't seem like that is the case, right? But just knowing that it is, and having that foundational belief and faith in Jesus, in his word, and trusting even when we couldn't see it. And we did not do that perfectly by any means. I mean, that's just act like I had that, just I had people around me that could help call me back out, and
that's good.
Walk through some of the darkness and be outside of his will for periods of time in that, but not living in a silo. so that people could see, you
Right.
know, and help draw us back in. And even just the hard stuff, not even just the silos of sin, but like just dark, you know, the hard things
Right. Just
that have
trials of
happened,
life.
trials of life.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. And, you know, I think sometimes we don't want people to see that stuff because we don't want to be a burden to them, not necessarily because we don't want help, but because we don't want to burden other people. But when you're, you know, so when you're around people that do love you and care about you, they'll force their way back in and help you get through it. So I think to say that we have grown through our journey is an understatement, but also to say that we were the ones just it was the community of people and just all that. So.
That's good. We talk a lot about community and genuinely wanting to be a church that does life together because we feel like in community, that's where true discipleship, true growth happens. And you think about the popular verse in Proverbs that everybody loves quoting, oh, well, iron sharpens iron. It's like, yeah, that happens when two pieces of iron are clashing against one another. And so you're talking a lot about community and just can you continue to share what that community has looked like throughout those seasons and how that's helped you grow in your discipleship with Jesus?
Yeah, I think for me, I can see it looking back on several seasons in my life. And at each point, I had like a mentor,
Mm.
someone that was I feel like a step ahead of me, like in stage in life, but also in, you know, in the relationship with Jesus. And that was just like so important for me for, you know, like when we were in Indiana, like originally when I was the youth pastor's wife, just, you know,
Yeah.
new to all this stuff, the pastor's wife there was like,
Sonia.
Sonia was such a mentor to me through all of that. And then when we moved to our new church in Kokomo, we got plugged into a small group, and they became, you know, they became our best friends,
Yeah.
basically. And
Yeah, we didn't have family there.
yeah, because
So
we had
Yeah.
no family. So that, you know, they were our community, they were our family. And had another, I mean, one of my best friends, but who was a step ahead of us in life. Her kids were, you know, older than mine. And she was that same person for me, and
Mm.
so needed, so important. Our small group really was there for us through some of the toughest times
yeah, for
there,
sure.
walking through our fostering journey, which is, you know, a
Yeah.
really hard but beautiful thing to be a part of. We needed their support through that, and you know, couldn't have done it without them. And
Absolutely not.
and just the faithfulness of the Lord that we saw through all of that.
Yeah.
You know, that growth comes through the hard times.
Mm.
You know, a lot of time, and I can look back and see that now, and we can look back and see how faithful God was and how good He was all through all of it, even though we still don't understand a lot of why things happen the way that they did,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
can move forward with confidence. And like I said, we had that community that helped us through it. I mean, I remember just nights before we were saying goodbye to, you know, the babies that we had fostered for 2.5 years, you know, our small group came over, and they were,
Wow.
it was still like COVID times
Wow.
where you're supposed to not have people into your house. They were literally standing outside in the snow in a circle praying for us.
Wow.
And
It's
I mean, I'll
beautiful.
never forget that. Then the next morning I look down from our bedroom window and see their footprints there in a circle. And it's like, you know, that was just like this reminder that, you can't do this life alone. You need, you need community.
Yeah.
And that was huge for us there.
And something
And
y'all certainly have embodied as soon as you moved and got plugged in with a new church. I mean, from the moment I met you guys, y'all were jumping in, plugging in. And so it's been cool to see y'all not only have experienced that, but also want to help others experience that and continue to multiply that experience with others. Right.
yeah, for sure. I mean, it
Yeah.
took me longer to
Mhm.
jump in than it did Dave and the kids. I kind of thought, you know, maybe I don't need that. I had my sisters, my family now that we lived here. And then the Lord just really showed me that, no, you need that here too. And once I opened up to community here, I mean, God just moved in so many ways. And obviously now I'm on staff here, and I get to direct the Haven, and none of that would have happened, of course, without the things that we've gone through in the past, but without people reaching out to me And then me finally making that decision to, get involved and jump in and start serving and being a part of things
Yeah.
was, really, really great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that with our kids too,
Mm-hmm.
we purposefully wanted to come to a church where they could serve, we could serve, where we could be known more quickly. And I think everybody's different in that. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's not, I'm not saying but for that season of life, we came from a really big church, big production, all that
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. That's where we came, and we found it to be very healthy for us in that season of our life.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, learned a ton. And like she said, we got close with a lot of people.
Right.
And even the people she was talking about, she's talking about the bronze. They were out in front of us, or a little older than we are.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I just talked to Jason last week. But their kids were out in front of our children too, and so every chance we could get, we wanted our kids to be around their kids, because their kids were following Jesus. Their kids were loving on our kids in such a way that our kids wanted to be like them. Tate wanted to be like Cole. Grayson was a little younger, but still, and Layla, like Jaden or Hope, and their girls. And so we wanted to be around them for our community, but then also so our kids were looking up
Right.
to the right kids.
It's multi-generational.
Yeah. And
For
so
sure.
that
It's powerful.
community, people say it takes a village to raise your children. And I think, that matters so much. The faith of our children. I mean, we try to teach it in the home. But as every parent knows, there's a point where kids have to get some of that from somewhere else, or they're going to, I don't care what dad says. I think they all do that, right? Dad, mom, whatever. But when they see it in the kids that they were wanting to be like, it's so powerful. And so, even just for parenting wise for us and the growth of us as parents, not only did we want to be like those parents, but we want our kids to be like that. So we're going to try to keep our kids in front of those kids, as much as we possibly could. So that was a huge part of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Annie, something you said rings so true, but is just so challenging for me. I think for everybody to hear, especially just the day and age that we live in, 21st century, instant gratification is at our fingertips, but growth happens through hardship and through continued surrender, deeper surrender to the Lord. I think about times in my life where I've experienced the most growth, even in my personal relationship with Him, and those are some of the hardest times I can think of, right? But how does Jesus teach us as we live out the love story of Jesus that it's not just a once in the moment, okay, boom, done, saved? No, this is a continual walk with Him, continual relationship, and we'll never reach that moment of perfection until we see Him face to face, right? So how do we learn to have, in a sense, that joy and that appreciation for this process of walking with Him, knowing that we'll be growing until the day we die,
Yeah. Paul said, I count it all joy when I fall into, temptation and hardness and things that are, trying to tear me apart. I'm going to count that joy. And that's like really, really hard to do. But,
because we just want to be there.
Yeah, we want to be there, but that is what strengthens relationships, right? We've walked through some really hard things. Some of it's been my fault, others are just out of our control, but because we walked through that, it just makes our marriage stronger, right? We committed to it, so we're in it.
Right.
And I think with community and church, I think it's too easy sometimes to bail. It's so easy to just, hey, this is hard. The people thing is hard. I'm going to move to somewhere else. Well, it's not hard. Well, there's going to be people there. And there's going to be some hard things. And I think once you start to move on from communities, it gets easier and easier to not get as deep into community and get as deep into relationships because you're afraid of them. And so you never find that again. But if you would stick through it, right? If you stick through it, I've been through church splits at 3 different places in my maybe 5 different places in my life, right? And and it was hard stuff that people needed to get through and work to the other side of. And, I think those folks, that stick it out through some of the hard things, the relationships get to that next level of deep. And the people who take that step away, it's going to be very hard for them at the next place to even get to that level where they can get hurt again. Right. And then the next time it happens, it's even more and more shallow, just because we protect ourselves. We just do it.
Right.
And, I don't think we do it on purpose. It's just part of who we are. But when we do walk through that stuff, just like in a marriage, just like in our lives, with the people when we're community with, and I can think back to some things that happened in some group that we were in, and just like, it could have been easy to just go, hey, we're just gonna get out of here.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we were, spiritually minded to do it. We just decided to stick through it. And the relationships to this day are some of our closest. I don't know how we'll ever, I've said that since we've been here. I don't know if I'll ever have friendships as deep as some of those friendships I have in Indiana, because of some of the dark stuff we all walked through together.
Right.
Now, it will happen again, I think, but it'll happen as we walk through some hard things with other people here, because that's what deepens those relationships. I mean, we don't want it to happen, but the other side of that is beautiful.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Anything you would add to that part?
No, I mean, I totally agree. And like you said, there's no quick way for any of that to happen. But reflecting back too is where you have the joy too at seeing what the Lord has done, and just the joy too, and the little things that each day that He's showing you and teaching you and revealing to you, things like that are just that are all part of following Him and becoming a disciple. His word is living and active, and it is just each day I'm learning new things, and He's showing, I feel like He's peeling back the layers always and just showing you the things that you need to change to become closer to Him. So
that's good stuff.
It doesn't happen fast.
Yeah. And it's part of that journey.
Yeah.
That is the relationship with Him.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal is not, more of this or more of that. The goal is more of Him.
More of Him. Mm-hmm.
Deeper relationship with Him. So y'all, it's been a joy, been a pleasure. Thank you guys for joining and just sharing how the Lord's been moving and working in y'all throughout your lives, different seasons, how He's growing you as you continue just to live out the love story of Jesus.
Yeah, it's fun.